All right, this the news, this the news, this the news. The United States said it had fired on two Iranian-flagged oil tankers on Friday as Iran's foreign minister accused Washington of reckless military adventure and of undermining diplomatic efforts. Also, U.S. Central Command said it had disabled the two tankers and they tried to reach an Iranian port. So the U.S. Central Command said it had disabled the two tankers as they tried to reach an Iranian port. The U.S. military says its forces fired on two Iran-flagged oil tankers to stop them from docking at an Iranian port Friday in violation of the U.S. blockade in the area. The latest strikes came a day after the U.S. military and Iran exchanged fire in the Strait of Hormuz, fighting that the Iranian military said was triggered by an earlier U.S. attack on another Iranian tanker. So there is still conflict, even though they're going through a ceasefire. There is still conflict. There are still people violating the ceasefire, and things are still very hostile. The negotiations don't really seem to be going well, but we will have to watch and give the facts. We don't speculate here on This the News. President Trump said the U.S.-Iran ceasefire is still in effect, but he warned the U.S. would knock them out a lot harder and a lot more violently if Tehran doesn't accept a peace deal. The United States on Friday announced a flurry of new sanctions intended to increase pressure on Iran's economy, targeting people and companies in China and Hong Kong that have been helping the Iranian military gain access to supplies and war equipment. Iran's internet blackout entered its 70th day on Friday, with national connectivity remaining at just 1 to 2% of normal levels. So the internet has been basically totally shut down in Iran in efforts to get them to come to the negotiating table and basically give up all their uranium and all their efforts towards developing nuclear weapons, which many news reports don't verify or establish that being the main problem. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations, Amir Saeed Ravani, accused the United States of violating the ceasefire after the U.S. military on Friday fired on two Iranian tankers near Jask and the Strait of Hormuz. He warned that continued U.S. military action in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz could have consequences that would be catastrophic and extend far beyond the region. Also, U.S. Central Command said that its forces have redirected 57 commercial vessels and disabled 4 others to prevent them from entering or leaving Iranian ports. 2 of the disabled ships were oil tankers struck by a U.S. Navy FA-18 Super Hornet earlier on Friday. Iran's foreign ministry said Friday that the war with the U.S. was in a nominal ceasefire situation, suggesting that Tehran did not consider the truce dead, but viewed it as a fragile after American and Iranian forces exchanged fire around the Strait of Hormuz a day earlier. So Tehran views the truce as fragile. Fighting intensified on Friday between Israel and Hezbollah, the Iran backed Lebanese militant group, framed a already fragile ceasefire between them. Israel issued evacuation warnings for a number of Lebanese towns in the south of the country and carried out airstrikes there throughout the day, unaliving at least 4, according to Lebanon's health ministry. Also in the news, the Israeli military later said that a handful of rockets had been launched into northern Israel, setting off sirens in several areas, but reported no casualties. Iran has demanded an end to Israeli strikes in Lebanon. An escalation in fighting there could complicate U.S. efforts to reach a diplomatic end to the border conflict. So everything is still very much hostile. Everything is pretty bad. And everything is pretty serious. Sorry to hear about your loss, Gira. Keep us informed on your travels, your visits, and what's going on. So the situation is still tense. It does seem, because we don't speculate here, that certain stipulations are not being agreed upon. And we will keep our eye on that and let you know, because it does seem that an agreement is becoming very difficult. And the bottom line is definitely uranium and nuclear weapons, for sure. At least 31 people, including a rescue worker, were unalived on Friday in wide-scale Israeli attacks on southern Lebanon. It was one of the deadliest days since fighting between Israeli forces and Hezbollah restarted on March 2nd. Among those unalive were 5 people in 2 airstrikes targeting the town of Torah in the Tyre district. Rescue operations are still ongoing to search for a missing girl beneath the rubble. So there's a missing girl beneath the rubble. That's sad. Innocent people are being caught up. War is relentless. An Israeli army drone also targeted a car on the road connecting Kfar Choba and Kfar Haman in the Habaya district, unaliving a civil defense worker. 5 people were unalived in Israeli airstrikes targeting villages in the Bent Jbeil and Nabathia districts. 4 more were unalive in a strike on the town of As Sultania in the Bent Jbeil district. Also, The United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry said on Friday morning that its air defense systems were intercepting missiles and drone attacks from Iran. Attacks on the UAE in recent days have further strained the tenuous ceasefire between Iran and the United States. On Thursday, Iranian officials blamed the UAE for reported strikes in southern Iran. Also, after new U.S. attacks, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Iranians never bow to pressure, and every time a diplomatic solution is on the table, the U.S. opts for a reckless military adventure. Also, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation demanded immediate international action to end Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory and advance a two-state solution, delivering a statement on behalf of the OIC group during a meeting at UN headquarters. Turkey's UN ambassador Ahmet Yildiz said the Palestinian issue has reached a breaking point amid continuing violence and political deadlock. The need for practical measures to resolve the Palestine question and the cries of the Middle East have become more pressing in view of the broad implications for global peace and security, said Yildiz. And so the situation with the Palestinians is still up. The Middle East conflict is very much spreading. And so there's really no telling where all of this is going to head. But subscribe to This The News. And here at This The News, we will keep you informed without all the extra sauce, without all the confusion, and let everyone know they can come to This The News and get the news in a matter of minutes. You know why? Because This The News.